Single dad stands up for paralyzed poor girl accused of shoplifting, unaware her father is a millionaire. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. I saw you slip that medicine into your bag. The store manager's voice boomed across Franklin's corner, his finger pointing at a young woman in a wheelchair. Don't think being in that chair means you can steal from me. Ryan Walker froze mid-reach for a loaf of bread, his 8-year-old daughter Daisy's small hand tightening in his. The woman being accused sat perfectly still in her wheelchair, her blonde hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. But it wasn't her appearance that caught Ryan's attention. It was the way she held herself, spine straight, chin raised, even as the store manager towered over her. "Sir, I did not take anything," the woman said, her voice steady despite the small crowd beginning to gather. "You're welcome to check my bag, check the cameras, but I won't be spoken to this way." The security guard, an older man with tired eyes, shifted uncomfortably beside them. Other customers had stopped shopping, some pulling out their phones, others whispering among themselves. Ryan noticed how the woman's legs remained completely motionless in the wheelchair. Not a twitch, not a shift, the kind of stillness that spoke of permanent paralysis. "Dad, why is that man yelling at her?" Daisy whispered, pressing closer to his worn jacket. Before Ryan could answer, Mr. Franklin grabbed the woman's bag, dumping its contents onto the counter with unnecessary force. A leather wallet tumbled out, followed by tissues, a folded piece of paper, a small tablet, and a single car key fob. Nothing else. No medicine, no stolen goods.
"Maybe you hid it somewhere else," Franklin sneered, reaching toward the wheelchair side pocket. That's when Ryan moved. "That's enough!" His voice cut through the store like a blade. He positioned himself between Franklin and the woman, his calloused hands visible as he crossed his arms. "You've checked her bag. There's nothing there." Franklin's face reddened further. "This isn't your business, Walker. Take your kid and finish your shopping." "It became my business when you started harassing a customer without proof," Ryan replied. He could feel Daisy hiding behind his leg now, but he didn't move. Something about this moment felt important, like the kind of moment that defines who you are when no one's keeping score. The woman looked up at him, hazel eyes, holding a mixture of surprise and something else. Relief, maybe, that someone had finally seen her as more than just the chair. "Are you okay, miss?" Ryan asked, turning slightly toward her while keeping Franklin in his peripheral vision. "I'm Hannah," she said, gathering her scattered belongings with deliberate calm, though Ryan could see her hands trembling slightly. "I'm fine, thank you, but I can handle this." "Can you?" Franklin spat. "Tony, call the police. I want her arrested for shoplifting." The security guard, Tony, scratched his gray beard nervously. "Mr. Franklin, the cameras would show if she took something. Want me to check the footage first?" "Don't bother! But she's not welcome here anymore." Franklin's eyes narrowed at Hannah. "Her kind." Ryan's jaw tightened. The words hung in the air like a challenge. Franklin stammered. "I mean, troublemakers. People who what? Use wheelchairs?" Ryan's voice had dropped to a dangerous quiet. Behind him, he heard Daisy zip her bag closed, the sound somehow louder than it should have been.
"Dad," Daisy tugged at his jacket, "can we help her?" Sometimes children see the world more clearly than adults ever could. Ryan looked down at his daughter, her eyes so much like her mother's had been, full of that same fierce sense of right and wrong that had made him fall in love all those years ago. 3 years since they'd lost her, and here was Daisy, carrying that same light forward. "Yeah, sweetheart, we can help." He turned back to Franklin. "You know what? We're done shopping here. Permanently." "Your loss," Franklin muttered, but his bravado was cracking. Ryan bent down, helping Hannah gather the last of her things. Daisy, following her father's lead, picked up the tissues that had rolled under a display stand and handed them to Hannah with a shy smile. "Thank you," Hannah said softly, looking between them. "Both of you, it's nice to know there are still decent people in the world." "There's more of us than you'd think," Ryan replied. "Can we walk you to your car?" The November wind hit them hard as they exited the store, and Ryan instinctively moved to shield Hannah from the worst of it. Her chair moved smoothly despite the uneven sidewalk, and he noticed how expertly she navigated around the cracks and bumps. This wasn't new to her. "You really didn't have to do that," Hannah said as they reached a modest sedan parked in the handicapped space. "Most people just look away." "Is that what you wanted us to do?" Ryan asked. She smiled then, really smiled, and something in her face transformed. No, I suppose not." Ryan watched as she transferred herself from the wheelchair to the driver's seat with practiced movements, no hesitation, no need for help. Her upper body was strong, compensating for what her legs could no longer do. The car had hand controls, he noticed, specially modified but otherwise unremarkable.
"I'm Ryan, by the way. Ryan Walker. This is my daughter, Daisy." "Hi," Daisy said, waving enthusiastically. "I like your car. It has special controls like in my video game." Hannah laughed, a genuine warm sound. "It does, doesn't it? Makes driving an adventure." "We need to find a new grocery store anyway. Franklin's prices were too high. Know any good places around here?" "There's Morton's, 2 blocks east. The owner's actually decent. Plus, they have those car carts kids love." "The race car ones?" Daisy's eyes lit up. "Dad, can we go there instead?" "Sounds like a plan." He hesitated, then asked, "Do you shop there often?" "Saturdays, usually. Around this time, actually." Their eyes met, and an understanding passed between them. Not a promise, not quite, but a possibility. "Maybe we'll see you there sometime," Ryan said. "Maybe you will." As they watched Hannah drive away, Daisy looked up at her father. "Dad, why was that man so mean to her?" Ryan knelt down to his daughter's level, the same way he had 100 times before, when he'd had to explain why Mommy wasn't coming home from the hospital, when he'd had to tell her they couldn't afford the dance classes all her friends were taking, when the world seemed too big and too harsh for an 8-year-old to understand. "Sometimes, sweetheart, people see differences and get scared, or angry, or both. But she wasn't different. She was just sitting in a chair with wheels instead of standing." "Exactly." He kissed her forehead. "You've got your mom's heart, you know that?" The thing about grief is that it doesn't announce itself. It shows up in grocery stores and morning coffee, and the way November wind sounds exactly like it did 3 years ago, when Ryan had stood outside the hospital, unable to process what the doctor had just told him. Complications during routine surgery, 1 in 10,000 chance, nothing anyone could have done. But grief also teaches you things. It teaches you that life is shorter than you think, that kindness matters more than being right, that standing up for someone else can sometimes help you remember how to stand up for yourself. Over the next few weeks, Saturdays at Morton's became a new routine. And yes, Hannah was there, always around the same time, always alone, always with that same quiet dignity that had first caught Ryan's attention. They started with nods of recognition, then small talk by the produce section, then longer conversations while Daisy raced around in the car cart making engine noises that echoed through the aisles.
"You're a teacher?" Ryan asked one Saturday, 3 weeks after the Franklin incident. "Was," Hannah corrected, selecting apples with careful precision. "Literature, high school. But that was before." She didn't elaborate on before, and Ryan didn't push. He understood about befores and afters. His own life was divided that way too. "Daisy's struggling with reading," he admitted. "Her teacher says she's falling behind. I try to help, but after double shifts at the distribution center, I'm not much good at anything except making sure she's fed and safe." "I could help," Hannah offered, then quickly added, "If you'd like. I still remember all the tricks from making books come alive for kids." "I couldn't pay much." "I wasn't asking for payment." Hannah's voice was firm. "Consider it a thank you for standing up for me that day." "You don't owe me anything for that." "No," she agreed, "but maybe I want to help anyway. Novel concept, right? People doing things just because they want to?" That's how Hannah Brewster entered their lives properly. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons at the small apartment Ryan and Daisy called home. The place wasn't much. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, kitchen that doubled as a dining room, living room barely big enough for a secondhand couch, and the TV that only got 3 channels clearly.
But Hannah never seemed to notice or care about the water stains on the ceiling or the radiator that clanged like a ghost in chains. She'd arrive in her chair, books in her lap, and transform their tiny living room into whole worlds. She taught Daisy that letters were just symbols waiting to become stories, that words were magic spells that could take you anywhere. "Your mom would have loved her," Ryan said one evening, after Hannah had left and Daisy was asleep, clutching the book Hannah had given her. Something about a brave princess who used wheels instead of legs and saved her kingdom anyway. He was talking to the photo on the mantel, the one from their last Christmas together. Sarah's smile frozen in time, her arms around Daisy, who'd been only 5 then, still believing the world was nothing but good things waiting to happen. "I don't know what I'm doing," he whispered to the photo. "I see the way Hannah looks at Daisy, the way Daisy lights up around her, and I feel something. But what right do I have to feel anything? What if I'm just lonely? What if I'm using her to fill a void? What if—" The radiator clanged, cutting off his spiral of doubt. Sometimes the apartment seemed to have opinions of its own. The truth was, Hannah was nothing like Sarah. Sarah had been fire, passionate, impulsive, dancing in rainstorms and singing off-key at the top of her lungs. Hannah was more like water, calm on the surface but with depths Ryan was only beginning to discover. Where Sarah had filled every room she entered, Hannah had a way of creating space for others to exist, to be seen, to matter. One Thursday, 2 months after she'd started tutoring Daisy, Hannah didn't show up. Ryan tried calling, no answer. He drove by Morton's that Saturday. She wasn't there. Daisy asked every day when Miss Hannah was coming back, and Ryan had no answer to give her. Then, on the 10th day, she appeared at their door. "I'm sorry," she said before Ryan could speak. "I should have called. I should have explained. I needed some time." She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, her usual composure cracked at the edges. "Are you okay?" Ryan asked, stepping aside to let her in. "My father found me," she said simply. "I've been avoiding him for 8 months, and he finally tracked me down." Did he hurt you?" "No, not the way you mean. Richard Brewster doesn't hurt people with his hands. He does it with good intentions and a checkbook."
She wheeled herself into the living room where Daisy was supposedly doing homework but had actually been watching out the window for the past hour. "Miss Hannah!" Daisy launched herself at the woman, throwing her arms around her neck. "I thought you forgot about us." "Never," Hannah said, holding the girl tight. "I could never forget about you, either of you." That evening, after Daisy had finally been convinced to go to bed, Hannah told Ryan the truth. Not all of it. That would come later, but enough. "After my accident," she began, then stopped. 5 years ago, I was in an accident, horseback riding. I was teaching therapeutic riding to kids with disabilities, and there was this sudden thunderstorm. The horse spooked. There was a little boy in danger, and I made a choice. He walked away without a scratch. I didn't walk away at all." Ryan said nothing, just listened. "My father changed after that. He'd always been protective, but this was different. He hired nurses I didn't need, canceled plans I'd made, spoke for me in conversations like I'd lost my voice along with my legs. He meant well. He was terrified. But I was suffocating. So you left. 8 months ago. Packed what I could, found this place, started over. I wanted to prove, to him, to myself, that being paralyzed didn't mean I needed someone making all my choices for me. And now he's found you. Now he's found me." Hannah's hands twisted in her lap. "He wants me to come home. Says I've made my point, had my little rebellion. He doesn't understand that this isn't rebellion. This is my life." Ryan moved closer, careful not to crowd her. "What do you want?" "I want—" Hannah stopped, seeming surprised by the question. "No one's asked me that in a long time. I'm asking now." "I want to keep teaching Daisy. I want to keep meeting you at Morton's. I want to build something real. Something that's mine. Something that has nothing to do with—" She stopped again. "With what?" Hannah looked at him for a long moment, seeming to weigh something in her mind. "There's something else you should know about my father. About why he's so insistent. Why he thinks he can just
arrange my life for me. Ryan waited. His name is Richard Brewster, of Brewster Technologies. The name hung in the air between them. Brewster Technologies, the medical equipment empire, the Fortune 500 company, the billionaire founder who'd revolutionized adaptive technology for people with disabilities. That, Richard Brewster. Your father is worth more money than either of us could spend in 10 lifetimes. Yes. Ryan sat back, processing. Suddenly, certain things made sense. The quality of Hannah's clothes despite their simplicity. The way she never worried about gas prices. The car that was modest but never broke down. She wasn't poor. She was choosing to live simply. That's why you didn't want Franklin to know who you were. Why you were so calm, even when he was accusing you. You could have bought that entire store. I could have bought the entire block. But what would that have proven? That money makes you innocent? That wealth equals worth? I've seen what that kind of thinking does to people. It made my father believe he could buy my safety, my happiness, my entire life. I won't be that person. So you're here, living like a normal person? Like someone who has to budget and make choices and face consequences? Yes, because that's what I am. A person. Not a trust fund, not a tragedy, not a charity case. Just a person.
Ryan was quiet for a long moment. Then, you know what I thought when I first saw you at Franklin's? What? I thought you were brave. The way you held yourself. The way you didn't back down even when he was humiliating you. The wheelchair, your father's money, none of that changes what I saw that day. Hannah's eyes filled with tears. You really mean that? I really mean that. Most people, when they find out about the money, they either pity me more, poor little rich girl in a wheelchair, or they suddenly become very interested in being my friend. I'm already your friend, Ryan said simply. Although, Hannah tensed, I'd be lying if I didn't think about being more than that sometimes. The words hung between them like a bridge waiting to be crossed. Hannah looked at him, really looked at him. Saw the exhaustion from double shifts, the grief that still lingered in the corners of his eyes, the strength it took to raise a daughter alone. The courage it had taken to say what he'd just said. I think about it too, she admitted softly. Before either could say more, Daisy's voice called from her bedroom. Dad, is Miss Hannah still here? Can she read me a story? The moment broke, but gently, like waves on a shore. Go on, she's been asking for you every night. As Hannah wheeled toward Daisy's room, she paused. Ryan, we're okay, even knowing about... We're more than okay, he assured her. We're whatever we choose to be. Spring arrived slowly that year, creeping into their lives like hope returning after a long winter. Hannah became a fixture in their lives, not just Tuesday and Thursday tutoring, but Saturday groceries, Sunday park visits, Wednesday dinners when Ryan wasn't working late. Daisy had started calling her my Hannah, with a possessiveness that made both adults smile and ache in equal measure.
It was during one of those Wednesday dinners that everything changed. Ryan had made his infamous, Hannah would tease, spaghetti with sauce from a jar that he doctored with extra garlic and oregano. Daisy was chattering about her improved reading scores, how Mrs. Peterson had put her in the advanced reading group, how it was all because Miss Hannah had taught her that books were friends, not tests. The doorbell rang. I'll get it. Daisy bounded toward the door before Ryan could stop her. She opened it to reveal a man in an expensive suit, silver hair perfectly styled, eyes the exact same hazel as Hannah's. Hello, he said, his voice cultured but warm. I'm hoping to speak with my daughter. Hannah went rigid in her chair. Ryan stood, instinctively moving closer to her. What are you doing here, Dad? May I come in? Richard asked. Please, I'm not here to make demands. I'm here to apologize. Ryan and Hannah exchanged glances. Hannah nodded slightly. Come in, Mr. Brewster.
Richard entered the small apartment, and if he had opinions about the water stains or the clanging radiator, nothing showed on his face. His attention was entirely on Hannah. "You look well," he said softly. "Happy." "I am," Hannah replied, chin raised in that way Ryan had come to recognize as her armor. "I've been wrong," Richard said, the words rushing out like a dam breaking. "I've spent 5 years trying to protect you, to cushion every fall, make every decision, because I couldn't protect you from that accident. But I see now you didn't need protection. You needed respect. You needed me to see that you're still the strong, independent woman you always were. I needed you to see me, Dad. Not the chair, not the paralysis, me." "I see you now," Richard said, his eyes wet. "My investigators. Yes, I know, I'm sorry about them too. They told me about your life here. Your volunteer work at the literacy center, your tutoring. These people who've become your family. You built a real life, Hannah. Without my interference, without my money smoothing the way, I'm proud of you." Hannah was crying now, and Ryan reached over to take her hand. She gripped it tight.
"Is that Hannah's daddy?" Daisy whispered loudly to Ryan. "Yes, sweetheart." "Is he sorry for being mean?" Richard actually smiled at that. "Very sorry," he said to Daisy. "I wasn't mean exactly, but I was foolish. I thought keeping someone safe was the same as keeping them happy. Your dad seems to understand the difference." Daisy studied him with 8-year-old seriousness. "My dad says when you love someone, you help them be brave, not scared. Your dad sounds very wise." The reconciliation wasn't instant or perfect. Richard stayed for dinner, sitting at their small table, eating spaghetti from mismatched plates, listening to Daisy explain her science project about butterflies with genuine interest. He asked Ryan about his work, not with the tone of someone measuring worth by income, but with real curiosity about what it took to keep a supply chain running. "You've got a wonderful family," Richard told Ryan quietly, while Hannah and Daisy were cleaning up, Daisy carrying plates, while Hannah gathered utensils. "We're not exactly a family," Ryan corrected. "Hannah and you're in love with my daughter, and she's in love with you. I may have been a fool about many things, but I'm not blind." Ryan met his gaze steadily. "I loved her before I knew about the money." "That's exactly why it changes everything," Richard replied. "Do you know how many people have pursued Hannah since her accident? Not in spite of the wheelchair, but because of it, and the fortune they assumed she'd inherit. They saw vulnerability and dollar signs. You saw a woman being mistreated and stood up for her. Anyone would have. No, they wouldn't. They didn't. I know because I've had people watching over her, from a distance, I promise, since she left. That day at Franklin's store, 3 other customers saw it happen. They recorded it on their phones, but none of them stepped forward. Only you." The spring turned to summer, and with it came changes. Hannah returned to teaching part-time at the community college using adaptive equipment her father's company had developed, but only after she'd thoroughly tested it and provided feedback for improvements. She insisted on earning her own salary, maintaining her independence while accepting that her father's love, however imperfectly expressed, had always been real.
Franklin's corner store made the local news. The owner had been arrested for insurance fraud. He'd been falsely accusing customers of shoplifting, filing inflated claims for the stolen merchandise. Several victims had come forward after security footage revealed his scheme. The store closed, and in its place a community center opened, funded by an anonymous donor that everyone suspected but no one could confirm was Richard Brewster. But the biggest change came on a warm September afternoon at the Therapeutic Riding Center where Hannah had her accident. Ryan had planned this for weeks. He'd saved not for an inexpensive ring, Hannah wouldn't want that, but for something more meaningful. He'd tracked down the family of the little boy Hannah had saved, convinced them to come, arranged for Daisy to be there with Richard, made sure everything was perfect. "Why are we here?" Hannah asked as they approached the riding arena.
her voice tight with old fear. "There's someone who wants to meet you," Ryan said gently. A boy about Daisy's age ran up to them, all energy and life, and limbs that worked exactly as they should. "Miss Hannah," he said shyly, "my mom said you're the one who saved me. When the horse got scared and I was going to fall, you made sure I didn't get hurt. Thank you." Hannah's breath caught as the boy hugged her, his small arms tight around her neck. "You're walking. You're running. You're perfect." "Because of you," the boy's mother said, approaching with tears streaming down her face. "They told us what you sacrificed to save him. We've wanted to thank you for 5 years." As the boy ran back to join Daisy, who was already showing her her favorite book, Ryan knelt beside Hannah's chair. The afternoon sun created a golden halo around them, and from his pocket he pulled out a simple gold ring with a single sapphire, Hannah's birthstone.
"Hannah Brewster," he said, his voice carrying across the arena where a small crowd of staff and families had gathered. "You've taught me that strength isn't about standing tall. It's about facing each day with courage and grace. You've shown Daisy that independence isn't about doing everything alone. It's about choosing who you let into your life. You've proven that love sees no limitations, only possibilities." Hannah was crying, but she was also laughing, and the sound was like music. "Will you choose us forever?" Ryan continued. "Will you marry me? Will you let us be your family officially, permanently, with all the chaos and clanging radiators and spaghetti dinners that includes?" Through her tears, Hannah saw her father in the crowd, holding Daisy's other hand, his own eyes wet with emotion. He nodded at her, his smile saying everything, that she'd always have his support, but the choice was entirely hers. "Yes," Hannah said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Yes to you and Daisy and this beautiful, messy, perfect life we've built. Yes to all of it." The crowd erupted in cheers as Ryan slipped the ring onto her finger, then leaned in to kiss her, while Daisy ran over, throwing herself into the embrace, shouting, "We're going to be a real family! A real family!" "We already were," Hannah said, holding them both. "We just made it official." Have you ever had someone stand up for you when the whole world seemed against you? Share your story in the comments below. We love reading them. The wedding was held at the community center that had replaced Franklin's corner store. Hannah had quietly arranged for it to house literacy programs, support groups for people with disabilities, and after-school tutoring that Daisy enthusiastically helped with, reading to younger kids with the same passion Hannah had taught her. The space was transformed with simple decorations, wildflowers from the park where they'd had their first real conversation, paper butterflies Daisy's class had made, photos of their journey together that Richard had been secretly taking during his visits. Hannah didn't hide her chair for the ceremony. She'd had a dress specially made, elegant but practical, flowing in all the right ways, allowing her to move freely. She wheeled herself down the aisle with Daisy as her flower girl, though most of the petals ended up scattered before they even started walking, victim to Daisy's enthusiasm.
Ryan stood at the altar in his one good suit, the one he'd worn to job interviews and Sarah's funeral, and now to his wedding, because life has a way of recycling our important moments. His eyes never left Hannah as she approached, seeing not the chair, not the wealth, not the complications, but the woman who'd changed his life simply by being exactly who she was. In his vows, Ryan said, "A year ago, I thought I was just standing up for a stranger in a store. I had no idea I was meeting the woman who would teach me that love isn't about saving someone or being saved. It's about choosing to stand beside someone, especially when the rest of the world makes assumptions about what they can or cannot do. You've shown me that grief isn't the end of love, but proof that love continues, transforms, grows into something new. Hannah, you haven't replaced what I lost. You've helped me discover what I still had to give." Hannah's vows were equally powerful. "Ryan Walker, you saw me before you knew my story, my family, or my circumstances. You saw me when I was being accused and diminished, and you stood up not because you pitied me, but because it was right. You and Daisy have given me something worth more than any fortune, a love that sees no limitations, only possibilities. You've taught me that independence doesn't mean isolation, that accepting help isn't weakness, and that sometimes the greatest strength is letting someone else be strong for you. I choose you, today and always, wheels and all." When Daisy insisted on adding her own vows, unplanned but perfectly her, she said, "Miss Hannah, Mom, is it okay if I call you Mom now? You taught me that books are magic and words matter and that different isn't bad, it's just different. And Dad, you taught me to stand up for people and be brave even when you're scared. So I promise to love both of you forever and to always help carry the groceries and to read to other kids like Mom taught me." There wasn't a dry eye in the community center. Richard Brewster gave a toast that would be remembered by everyone present. "I spent years trying to protect my daughter from a world I thought would hurt her. But Ryan taught me something important. Hannah didn't need protection. She needed recognition of her strength. She needed love that empowered rather than diminished. She needed a partner who saw her wheels as simply part of how she moved through the world, not a definition of who she is. Ryan, you gave her that. More importantly, you gave me back my daughter, not as I wanted her to be, but as she truly is, strong, independent, brilliant, and stubborn as hell. Thankfully, she gets that from her mother." The laughter that followed broke the emotional tension perfectly.
As their first dance began, Hannah spinning her chair while Ryan moved around her, Daisy joining them halfway through, because of course she did, the room was filled with a joy that transcended circumstances. The local news covered the wedding, focusing on the community center's transformation from a place of false accusations to one of celebration. But they missed the real story. They missed the quiet moments. Ryan adjusting Hannah's chair so she could reach the cake perfectly. Daisy wiping frosting from Daisy's face with practiced maternal grace. Richard dancing with Daisy, standing on his expensive shoes. The way the three families had become one. If you've made it this far in our story, you know that love isn't about perfect circumstances, it's about perfect choices. 6 months after the wedding, Hannah discovered something that would test everything they'd built. The doctors had said it was impossible, that paralysis from the waist down meant certain things would never happen. But sometimes the body has its own plans, its own miracles. "Ryan," she said one morning, holding a small plastic stick with trembling hands, "I'm pregnant." The journey that followed was complicated, risky, filled with specialists and concerns and adaptations. Richard insisted on the best doctors, and this time Hannah let him, because this wasn't about pride anymore. It was about the tiny life growing inside her. Ryan took fewer shifts, choosing presence over income. Daisy appointed herself big sister in training, practicing on every doll she could find. The community rallied around them, the same people who'd witnessed their beginning, now supporting their expansion. And when little Sarah Hannah Walker was born, healthy, perfect, named for the grandmother she'd never meet and the mother who'd fought to bring her into the world, the first thing she saw was her family. Not a traditional family, perhaps, a father with calloused hands and gentle heart, a mother whose legs didn't work but whose spirit soared, a sister who couldn't wait to teach her about books and butterflies, a grandfather who'd learned that love means letting go, not holding tight. "Thank you," Hannah whispered to Ryan as she held their newborn daughter, Daisy peering over her shoulder in wonder. "For what?" Ryan asked. Hannah smiled, that same smile that had transformed her face in a parking lot what felt like a lifetime ago. "Thank you for seeing me, from the very beginning. Not the chair, not the money, not the complications. Just me. Always. I'll always see you." Outside the hospital window, November wind rattled the glass. The same wind that had blown through Franklin's corner 2 years earlier, when a single father stood up for a woman in a wheelchair, never knowing he was standing up for his future, for love that transcends circumstances, for the family they'd build from courage and choice rather than conventional expectations. Sometimes the greatest fortunes aren't measured in money, but in moments. The moment you choose to stand instead of walk away. The moment you see someone for who they truly are. The moment you realize that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone whose imperfections fit perfectly with yours. And in a small apartment with water stains on the ceiling and a radiator that clangs like a ghost, a family of 4, soon to be 5, because miracles tend to multiply when you make room for them, lived a life worth more than all the money in the world. They'd started as strangers in a store, one standing up for another. They'd become a family that stood together, wheels and all. And that made all the difference. Thank you for watching today's story. If it touched your heart, if it reminded you that real wealth is measured in love and courage, please subscribe and share. Every week, we bring you stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things, proving that happy endings aren't just for fairy tales, they're for anyone brave enough to stand up, speak out, and choose love. Remember, the next time you see someone being mistreated, you have a choice. You can walk away, or you can be someone's Ryan. The world needs more people who choose to stand. Until next time, this is Everbell's Stories, reminding you that every ending is just a new beginning in disguise.